Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the post-credits show. I'm your host Loosh, and with me today is unfortunately not my boy Dean. Dino has been a little bit ill this week, so I thought I might jump on with another friend. So, please allow me to introduce you to the GOAT, the monster among men, the tribal chief of the greatest sporting club in the history of the world, Mr. Sam Shinazzi. How are you, Sambo?
Hey, thanks for having me. What a great intro. And it's my honour to be here to talk about the squared circle. I can't wait.
I love the squared circle. Well, today we're going to have a bit of a chat about WWE and our world. WWE has played a big part of our, the kinds of pop culture influences that we are excited about. And I think the time is right for us to have a bit of a chat because WWE has announced some massive, massive things here in Australia. And there's a lot of rumours floating around, so I thought we might catch up. But before we get into that, I had a question for you, Sam. Tell me your earliest memory of watching WWE.
Okay, I'm going to age myself here without saying my age. There's nothing wrong with being an older gentleman, that's for sure. But I was definitely a child of the mid-'80s revolution. And that was the rock and roll wrestling beast. And that was obviously Hulk Hogan going over against the Iron Sheik. I came in a little bit after that, but definitely a little Hulkamaniac before I knew what a different kind of person he was to what I am now. But definitely mid-'80s on is my earliest memory, watching with my family, and it was on, I think, at about 9:30 at night on Channel 10 in Sydney. And yeah, good memories, good times.
Yeah, those were the days, huh? When you had to hope that Mum and Dad remembered to press record on the VCR player. I know for myself, it was a complete and total revolution when Foxtel came out because all of a sudden WCW and WWF were on Fox Sports and TNT, and oh my God, there's two of them, and you've got Sting in one corner, you've got Stone Cold Steve Austin in the other corner, and we've got all of these crazy things going on, but for me, my earliest memory is sitting in my grandfather's lounge room, watching him curl his beard, talking about, that fucking Hulk Hogan. He absolutely loved to hate the guy and hated loving the guy. So I think, what a difference a couple of decades makes.
must be a grandfather thing, because my grandfather was also quite instrumental in my early love for the business. He would have watched, the Milanos and those guys from the 60s. And I actually went to my first event in the late 80s with him at the Entertainment Centre and saw some superstars. So must be a grandfather thing.
I reckon it might be. My grandfather was involved in some very interesting areas of social life when he was in Sydney. But I do know that one of the things that he used to love doing when the boys came out to Australia on tours, because they used to do it quite frequently back then, was Hulk Hogan was a biker. So my grandfather got to know some of the wrestlers because they used to go for rides around Sydney. So that was quite interesting. My mum got to meet Andre the Giant a few times when she was a little girl. So anyway, we are digressing. We are here today to talk about WWE, the current product, who's hot, who's not, who are the kingmakers, and what's going to happen in a couple of months' time when WWE makes it out to Perth, Western Australia for Elimination Chamber. The last stop on the road to WrestleMania. Can it get any bigger?
It's a bit of a dream. It's one of those things that we always wished for, and we saw it. Well, we've seen it become a reality over the last sort of 5-10 years, with the company getting bigger in Australia and coming out here more often, doing more promo trips. And a pay-per-view was the last one on the bucket list, really. Like, we've had a few kind of one-off special event pay-per-views, but this one is a legit well-known one. It's a big one, as you say, a month before Mania, and I mean, they couldn't have gone any further away from you and I, but that aside, it's still really, really cool.
Yeah, seriously, man, there's very few reasons to go to Perth. I haven't been back to Perth for a decade. Unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to have to dawn the steps of Perth after a while. So, good times. Well, look, let's have a bit of a chat about what's going on in WWE these days. Did you Current product in WWE is really interesting. I find that we have some very, very big names that are coming and going through WWE again. It was so weird last week to see both John Cena and The Rock
If you smell what The Rock is cooking
on the same show. Like it was like a head whip. It was like, is this like the early 2000s again?
Very exciting. I love the fact that The Rock was a spoiler for most people. Definitely a spoiler for me. It didn't get out there. You know, the wrestling sheets didn't let it be known. No one really knew, and it was a real surprise when the music hit. And it's cool. It takes us back to another time, and they're obviously some of the best of all time. These two in particular, Cena and The Rock in particular. And they still hold their own. And we've been waiting for The Rock for a long time, man. You know, the past 3 years you're thinking, when's he going to come out for this storyline?
Yep.
And it turns out this wasn't really related. But, you know, maybe he's dipping his feet in the water again.
The dirt sheets are rumbling again.
They are. And my only issue with all that is the strike is over in Hollywood. Pretty much it's over. So there's going to be a lot of work for actors coming up. And I hope that doesn't spoil him coming to Australia, going to Mania. I think...
It doesn't matter what you think!
The Rock's into it. I think he's keen, man. I think we're going to be seeing something special.
Now, I got a theory, right? So we've got Elimination Chamber coming up. And obviously it's the last opportunity to go into WrestleMania and face a champion of your choice. Obviously the winner of Royal Rumble is going to choose who they're going to go against. Who's going to win the next Royal Rumble is literally anybody's guess at this point. But I have a theory. Mm-hmm. I believe that Roman Reigns is going to fight The Rock at Mania. Ooh. But I think Roman Reigns as the tribal chief is going to make The Rock earn his spot as the tribal chief. He is going to tell The Rock, if you want my belt, you have to earn it first, which means I reckon The Rock's going to be in Elimination Chamber and wins Elimination Chamber to qualify for Mania.
Ooh, I like it. I like it a lot. I hope it happens, man. Again, the only thing I could see a problem would be real-life scheduling, but it makes sense.
I mean,
it leads up to the big dance.
They've got that TKO money now, so, you know.
Yes. I like it. I like it.
I don't think there's any coincidence in the fact that The Rock and John Cena were the bookends for the very first show under the TKO era as well. So,
right.
You know, hats off to TKO. You've got my attention.
Yeah, and I think even just, you know, hopefully I'm not spoiling your pod here, but even, you know, guys like LA Knight rising to the challenge. These guys that we thought, or we knew had something in them to elevate themselves out of NXT and wherever else they're being put. And his story, I love his story. He's an older fella. He's worked hard for it. Of course, he reminds me of guys from the past, but I don't really care. I think he does it really well. And he's someone that I think is just worth the ticket flying across Australia to go see him. That would be electric.
Look, there are very few occasions where WWE will acknowledge the pulling power of a wrestler. Now, for those who don't know, currently LA Knight has COVID. The reason why he hasn't been on TV for the last week.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Because he's got COVID, that means he also hasn't shown up at house shows. Now, this only ever happens when WWE acknowledge that the person that hasn't shown up at their house show is the big draw. WWE started issuing fans refunds because LA Knight wasn't there.
Wow, okay.
So I think they figured out this guy is money.
Yeah, he is. He absolutely is. I think for the 2 or 3 naysayers out of 10, the 7 people who love him just worship him. I've heard some criticism about his shtick, but I've been a fan for a while, and that episode where they brought him back as, you know, the fashion guy or whatever, and then he went, "Don't call me that. My name is LA Knight." Like, I legitimately was off my lounge peeking and marking out, as they say, and from then on, you can't stop him.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. My theory, and you know, again, this is just theory based on some things that I've read. I reckon LA Knight might end up winning the Royal Rumble. I think LA Knight faces Cody Rhodes for what is currently Seth Rollins' heavyweight championship.
At Mania.
At Mania.
And Cody wins. Is that what you're saying?
Probably.
Okay. But in the process,
puts LA Knight over like a superhero.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I would be very excited to see that.
You sure you haven't been a writer in your past life of wrestling?
Man, honestly,
operas?
I have sat here and written so many storylines, and they never come true. And I'm just sitting here going, "Holy shit, man! I've missed my calling."
Yeah.
But hey, look, on the note of stories, right? Like,
yes,
I want to say the one story that has got me really confused right now is Nia Jax.
Oh, yeah.
So Nia Jax has this history of injuring people, like legitimately injuring her opponents, right? Yeah. And then they brought her back and had her completely squash the most dominant women's champion in the history of WWE, and have leaned into that whole Nia Jax injures people storyline, and has now got her storyline injuring people as well. And I'm just kind of sitting here going, guys, you know there's a difference between the boos that Nia Jax is getting and the boos that Dominic Mysterio is getting, right? There's like heel heat, and then there's please go away heat.
I'm actually one of the few Nia fans out there, I think. And I say that without discrediting what you're saying, because I agree with everything you're saying. I think they're trying to make her into the larger-than-life athlete that she is in reality. Like, they've kind of pushed that for her career, but she's legitimately a bigger woman who can do pretty good things in the ring. And I think they're trying to emphasize that with her size and with the squashes. But, unfortunately for Nia, she does have that rep of, I think it's unintentional, obviously, but she's a bit clumsy in the ring.
Definitely. Look, it was really cool to see Asuka come out and defend Nia. I thought that was really classy, and it is really cool to see like the fraternity nature of the locker room there, where they're kind of backing each other up when it comes to those sorts of things. I'm not a Nia Jax hater. I actually really, really loved Nia in her first couple of runs with WWE. She did disappear pretty quickly. Obviously, she had the knee injury, and there were a whole bunch of other things going on in her personal world. And I'm really happy to see her come back. My only question is, I didn't quite understand why you would have such an incredible women's heavyweight title match with two of the best female wrestlers ever, and ruin that with a Nia Jax return.
My other thing is, I would make her into a superhero. I wouldn't have her be a villain.
I agree.
Which I think she
can play the. I think she can play the mega heel really well, but she's done that so much in her career. Yeah, let her be the face.
Yeah, and I think that because for a while she was, a spokesman for young women around the world and that kind of thing, and I think that's more of her shtick. Having observed her social media in real life, she seems like a really decent person.
Yeah,
I think that when she's being a villain, I sort of like sit back and go, I don't know if I'm buying this. You got the size
feels
thing
a bit
going
disingenuous.
on. Yeah. I think she could do the face thing a lot better.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think if she was a face, I think fans would be a bit more forgiving as well.
Yeah.
Geez, I tell you what, last week's episode of Monday Night Raw woke me up to 4 wrestlers that I've been sleeping on for a long time who I don't think I can anymore. The first two that I want to talk about, Dragon Lee and Dominic Mysterio. Holy shit, that match was fire.
Dominic, for starters, his rise has been one that I couldn't see coming. Because I think he's been good at what he's been doing, but it's been getting better every week to the point where now he's an actual superstar.
Yep.
He's not Ray's kid. And what he's fallen into, that bad boy thing, works unbelievably well. And one day he'll flip it and we'll all freak out and it might even be better. But it all started for me with the whole I spent the night in jail storyline. And once he started doing that, like at first you're like, oh, come on, man, this is a bit silly. But, you know, it's professional wrestling. You're supposed to get a bit silly. And he's done that so well. And then he's moved into sort of other territories within that. But same with Judgment Day. Like, at first I was like, oh, I don't know if I need another faction. But now they're unbelievable.
I think it was really interesting when Judgment Day started out and you had Edge, obviously, as the head of Judgment Day, and they were starting to play around a little bit with, supernatural things happen with this Judgment Day, and I think, like, they were trying to look for someone to fill the Undertaker void a little bit. But I'm so happy that they moved very quickly away from that, because the faction that they've created and the storyline that they've developed with Damian Priest, Finn Balor, Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio it's just phenomenal storytelling. Like, it's up until about maybe 2 months ago, the Bloodline storyline I think was one of the best storylines of the modern era. I'm now very firmly on it's the Judgment Day. Everything they do turns to gold.
Yeah. Now everything I say turns this podcast into an episode like my podcast, SharkCast, where we go off wavelengths. You were saying 4 guys woke you up. Who were the other 2?
Oh my god. Bronson Reed and Otis.
Our very own Bronson Reed.
Oh my god, I cannot wait to see that man mountain wrestle in person. Like, that match with Bronson Reed and Otis on last week's Raw, I don't know if you've seen it, but it was incredible. Like, I'm watching it thinking, oh yeah, here we go, 2 big boppers, you know, like we've seen the Goldbergs and Brock Lesnar's before. We've seen those big boys completely botch their matches before. This is just going to be a couple of boys hitting each other hard, and then one of them's going to fall over and the other one's going to fall on. That was such a hot way to start Raw.
Yeah.
Like, it was fire.
Yeah, those 2 boys can actually fly a little bit when they need to. Obviously more Bronson than the other fella, but they're both really good athletes. And Otis, while I know he still falls into that kind of humorous style of face, since he and Gable have become a lot more respected in the last, 2 months with their storyline, you can see Otis. You can see he's actually a really good wrestler. He would have been an amazing college wrestler, and you're right, it was an amazing match.
Yeah. Look, I'm really happy to see the Alpha Academy starting to wrestle instead of being, you know, the comedy duo, because I think there's so much talent in those 2 boys.
Oh, Gable is unbelievable.
Oh, man, like, Kurt Angle, Mark II.
Yeah.
Like, he is as good as Kurt Angle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Kurt Angle is one of the best of all time, so yeah, like, so stoked. Now, question for you. We have, coming up at Fastlane, John Cena and a mystery opponent. You know who the dirt sheets are talking about.
Well, if it's a who I think you're talking about and they're talking about, I think it's too soon, right?
Who are you talking about?
Who are you talking about?
Randy Orton with an RKO out of nowhere!
Randy Orton.
No, I didn't know that. I thought you were talking about The Rock. I thought you were talking about The Rock.
No, they're talking about Randy Orton, man. So apparently he hasn't been cleared by doctors, quote unquote. But the only media outlet that has posted that is the WWE.
Oh. I'm cool with that. I'm a Randy fan that sits on the respect side of the fence. I don't worship the guy. I don't even love the guy, but obviously I respect the hell out of him. And that would be cool to come back as a good guy, and yeah, that'd be cool.
Starting to feel like we're looking at the last good run for a couple of wrestlers here, like your Randy Orton, your John Cena, your Rock. I mean, even, I don't know, man. Is Seth Rollins giving you, like, my last big run kind of vibes at the moment?
No, but he might have a bit of a break. He's been doing his thing for quite a while now without too much of a break, and I think he might need just a bit of a refresher. I mean, the fans are loving him. They're singing along, they're loving him. I love him, but you wonder where he's got to go at the moment.
Exactly.
I don't think he'll be gone for too long. He might take 6 months or something, but he's a lifer.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. We'll never see him wrestle for another promotion ever. Like he's definitely going to be another Undertaker. You know, like he started well, Undertaker obviously didn't start his career at WWE and stay there the whole time, but you know, like once the Undertaker character was fully formed and realized, that was it. He was there for the rest of forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I'm very excited to see whether or not Randy does make a comeback. I really do hope so. Sometimes I kind of see Randy Orton and Ryan Pappenhausen in similar sorts of kind of circles. It's like, can you stay uninjured, please?
I mean, this has been the longest stint, right? This has been, a year and a half or something? Or
yeah, it's been a long time since we've seen an RKO out of nowhere.
Yeah, I do miss that. He's a very talented guy.
That RKO on Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 2 years ago was insanity.
I think anyone that has... I mean, your podcast is all about popular culture. Anyone that's got a move like that is mimicked around the world by people who don't even know what it is, that's the true definition of success right there.
Exactly. It's really interesting, though. Like, I was actually talking to a couple of friends of mine throughout the week. It's funny you mention, like, a move that's known by people around the world. Like, looking at the current roster of WWE, I think WWE has a problem. Aside from Roman Reigns, they don't have a megastar anymore. There was a period there in WWE where they had 5 or 6 megastars running through their company at the same time or simultaneously or you know, for a few months at a time each, and then they kind of tag in, tag out almost. But like, you've got Roman Reigns, and then like it does feel like Seth Rollins is still a level beneath where Reigns is at right now.
Is Cody between them though? Is Cody like the next biggest?
I think Cody is the next biggest. I think Cody is the closest. I think a fair bit of that has to do with the legacy of Cody Rhodes and the Rhodes family.
So it's not an outside the business kind of fame.
Yeah,
gotcha. Well, I mean, usually Vince would create these guys. Maybe it's a Vince thing. No more Vince, no more outside superstars.
Man, Vince is too busy growing moustaches and selling companies off.
Look, I mean, he's a guy that I would say most of my life I've been in awe of for different reasons. And obviously the older I got, the more I learnt about it, the more I kind of jumped off that. But I still ultimately respect, you know, as I'm sure you do, what he's created, what he's done. You know, the whole...
A literal lifetime of entertainment.
Yeah, and the whole no sleep and go to the gym at 4 in the morning and you're not allowed to sneeze around him because you're not allowed to be sick. All that stuff is just amazing. Like, it is fascinating. And I'm kind of annoyed at him, A, for being a bit of a a-hole, but also B, ruining his legacy, because it's a bit like Hulk Hogan. It's like these people you look up to and they do so, like, you know, Hogan worked his butt off. But ultimately, what are you going to be remembered for by certain people? Like, by guys like you and me, it's like, absolutely, you worked your fanny off to get where you are, but, you know, Vince, you shouldn't have been doing that with those people, and Hogan, you shouldn't be saying that stuff, and it's kind of inexcusable, right? Like, or unforgivable as far as you and I go. I'm sure his family, friends, whatever, but as far as you and I go, it's hard to forgive that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I think the biggest problem that I had with the whole Vince storyline was that, like, the family that was involved, like his family, we also grew up getting to know his family. We got to know Linda, we got to know Shane and Stephanie. You know, like we know these people. So some of the behaviors that Vince engaged in kind of upset us because, well, hold on a second. What about Linda? What about Stephanie? What about, like, how would you as a dad feel if someone treated Stephanie that way?
And I guess the backstory is the family kind of knew about it and kind of let it go on. So it's like that's where it gets even more confusing. Oh yeah, Vince, we know that, you know, that was what he did, and he kind of got away with it for so long, and you know,
well, look,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, Vince is still in charge. You know, it's kind of scary to think that Vince does technically have some kind of say over the UFC now as well. That's an odd one.
Yeah,
I think it's a technicality. I don't think it'll ever happen, but you know, he could, if he wanted to, pop his head in and say g'day.
I mean, Triple H has done an unbelievable job from what I can tell. And you can align it with when he took over and the storylines. And we, you know, guys like LA Knight getting real storylines and not being held back. And just, you know, the bloodline. And I know he's not solely responsible for these things, but he ultimately ticks them off. And the product's, man, as you've been saying, the product's been so good, the last 3 years. And whether that's got some sort of connection with an opposing company coming in and being really good as well, like, and whether they had to sort of pull their socks up and maybe they were floating by, cruising on by because there was no competitors, and now there's a competitor, a legitimate competitor. But Triple H, man, you can see it in the press conferences after the pay-per-views. He's just so passionate. He's so real about it all, and that's what you want.
Absolutely. Look, I think the worst episode of Raw that WWE has produced in the last 12 months was the episode of Raw immediately after WrestleMania this year.
Yeah.
It was an absolute shit show, and one of the interesting things that's come out about that particular episode of Raw is a lot of the guys who have been recently released by WWE are starting to speak out about Vince's involvement in WWE currently, and a lot of them have actually retold stories in the last 2 days of how Vince, literally an hour before Raw went live, arrived at the arena, scrubbed the script and rewrote the show, and was rewriting the show on the fly, to the point where Seth Rollins made his big entrance out to the arena. They cut to an ad break, and then that was it. No Seth Rollins.
That's right.
Because when he got to the arena, Vince cancelled his promo.
Yeah, and that's just the worst power move on his behalf. And again, that's, you know, a legacy that we're now talking about of a man that you and I, you know, we can still call him a genius, but we would have called him a genius even as recently as, I don't know, 18 months ago. But now the last remaining thing we're talking about is either his inappropriateness or stuff like that. Just a ridiculous power move. Everyone knows the Raw after Mania is the one you want to be at, the one you want to watch. I tuned in, couldn't wait, and it sucked. I was like, what is this?
Yeah. It was like a Raw in the middle of November with nothing special coming up. It was like, it wasn't even, it was terrible. It was really, really bad. Really interesting. I don't like to play what ifs very often, but I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I've been talking to a few friends about wrestling lately and getting a few friends back into it. And we've been kind of playing some what if kind of questions. What if Eric Bischoff won?
Oh, man. As in...
What if those 2 weeks... What if those 1996, 1997, WCW was absolutely slapping the shit out of WWE in the ratings week in, week out, and WWF came this close to calling it quits?
Well, I don't know, man.
What if Eric won?
I don't think we'd be in a better place.
No.
And
I don't think we'd be in a place at all.
Right.
I don't think... I don't think there would be... You know, the power moves that Turner made on WCW shortly after the Monday Night Wars ended, I don't think there would be a place.
Yeah, and creatively, I mean, Bischoff has had some good ideas, but Vince can school him and anyone else on ideas, and a lot of the ideas they took were from him anyway, and just, you know, painted them up a little bit. So, that's a pretty scary thought. And as someone who watched both back in the day... And I was a WCW guy for a long time. Like, Goldberg was a revelation to me. But, yeah, their decline was pretty quick. Like, I remember watching it going, this is getting pretty messy.
I remember the exact day that I realized that WCW was not going to survive. I remember the date.
Was it when the blood missed Kevin Nash and fell like to his left or whatever?
Oh no, we were well into the like we were in the death throes at that point.
Yeah, okay.
Like that was
Gotcha.
WCW was done and dusted by then.
Gotcha.
No, the moment that WCW fucked up so hard that it made everyone go, "Oh my god, they can't do this." December 29th, 1996, Sting versus Hogan.
Ah. Okay.
Sting was supposed to beat Hogan clean. Hogan called an audible 15 minutes before the match. Didn't want to do business.
Oh.
So they created a scenario where there was a dodgy finish. And then they threw Bret Hart in at the back end of it.
Yeah. Well, again, it comes back to Hogan, man.
Man, you've got Hogan, Hart, and Sting all in the ring at the same time, and they still couldn't land the plane.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good what if. I like Eric. I went and saw one of his speaking tours a few years ago, and I listen to his podcast when I can. I think he's good for the business, but yeah, interesting situation at that point. Why don't we do a little bit of, favorite guys or whatever? Who's your favorite of all time?
I was actually going to ask that earlier. So one of my favorites, my all-time favorite is not the favorite I'm going to talk about. I'll talk about my all-time favorite in a second. But one of my favorites and one of the most underappreciated wrestlers of this current generation to me is The Miz.
Because I'm The Miz! And I'm awesome!
Wow. Okay.
The Miz is a kingmaker. Mm-hmm. The Miz does business. Mm-hmm. The Miz is there as an icon of the business who pisses people off, gets the baby face over, does his job, leaves the building, gets a fat paycheck. The guy is so underrated. He's given so much to the younger generation, and he the games that he's playing around with now, that back and forward last week with Drew McIntyre was, as far as I'm concerned, some of Drew's and The Miz's best work.
Now, without getting too off topic, does that mean you're a huge Grayson Waller guy?
I haven't seen enough of Grayson Waller yet.
Okay.
But I am very interested.
You can... I'm going to lock in you'll be seeing a lot of him over the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, good. Good.
Who else you got?
remember when his name was Matty Wahlberg and he wrestled down here at MCW.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see our locals on the big screen. It's so cool to see Rhea Ripley with the most important women's title in the history of the game.
Unbelievable and completely deserved. A very good friend of mine, his best friend is real life Grayson Waller, and I've been in his company a couple of times. Top fella, kind of exactly what you see is what you get, and he's worked his butt off for it, and it's of no surprise to anyone who's kind of followed his career, and that's why I say to you, he's going to be massive. And Rhea is just astounding. I absolutely love her. Tell me more about your who's your goat? Who's your favorite?
My goat, my favorite, my number one, and it harkens back to my earlier days. And I think WWE did him so dirty. But my goat is still and will always be the Stinger.
Okay.
I fucking loved that storyline. The crow, the rooftop. Mm-hmm. When a man's heart is full of deceit, it burns up, dies in a dark shadow cut. That whole production just gave me everything I needed. I would say Sting and The Undertaker.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. How about you?
Have you ever put the Sting face paint on?
I used to draw it a lot when I was in high school.
Okay.
I used to draw it a lot, but I never actually put it on.
Okay. Maybe in Perth you might do it.
I've got about as much hair as Sting does now, so it'd probably look about right.
My all-time guy, I'm pretty sure, is the Macho Man Randy Savage. May he rest in peace.
Ooh, yeah!
And
Yeah.
I really love The Undertaker. Like, he's legit. He's very high on that mountain. And I'm going to throw in Bill Goldberg, particularly the WCW run.
Yeah.
Those three are largely people that brought me into watching the business. There's been a whole lot of other people along the way, but yeah, those three really come to mind.
I'm so sad. I am so sad that we never got to see Sting versus The Undertaker.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been great business. And I think it almost happened a few years ago, and even that would have been too late, but I'm sure they still would have made it amazing.
Exactly.
But I do also want to give a shout out to someone who would have been, I think, up there ultimately, and you and I have discussed him before, and that is the very recent, unfortunately, late Bray Wyatt.
Oh.
He was unbelievable, and I, the year and a half that he had off or whatever, like everyone else, I was just frothing. I was waiting for him to come back. I couldn't wait for it, and that comeback at the end of whatever pay-per-view it was, I think that is a top 5 wrestling moment, like in the history of time.
Oh, with the door.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my god.
They go around the arena and he's got the different. Yeah, you think that's him? No, that's not. Like that was chilling, man. It was so good. Like it was so well executed, and even his run after that was kind of cool. But yeah, anything he did was just electric. The Fiend stuff was just fascinating. Like, there's not many people that could pull off that in this day and age. And even when he started the Fiend stuff, I was like, I don't know, man. But he was so scary, and he made it so real.
It was incredible. And I don't think this is the saddest thing about it. And I think the reason why we spoke a little bit after it was announced that he'd passed away, and we were both devastated because I think we never really got to see him at his full potential. He was only just getting started.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the legacy he left is unbelievable, but I do agree with that statement. I do agree that he had a long way to go, and which is scary because, yeah, he did so much in his time. From, the Husky stuff early on to the last run where he was like the real Bray Wyatt, but then you knew that, something was going to change, and his real life brother was acting as the other guy, and it was all
Uncle Howdy.
Yeah, it was all just coming around, and even that storyline, you're like, but then you're like, no, I'm going along with it, and then you go along with it, and it's great. And I'll tell you about What Ifs. This is my booking, all right? I don't know if I've told you this or not, but my booking is his brother, his real life brother, comes back as himself. So the real him, no. Or maybe he comes back as Uncle Howdy, takes the mask off, and he's like, this is me. And everyone's like, oh, okay. And he's like, I'm going to do this for Bray. And he has a run as a heel, as a face, because he's actually a really good wrestler. And give him a title, whatever title you want. Give him 6 months. Dedicate it to Bray. And I think that's money right there. It's money and it's beautiful.
It's funny you should mention that, because my next question was going to be, have you heard the rumors that WWE is considering bringing Bo Dallas back as Uncle Howdy?
Shut the hell up.
I was reading about it today.
Man, I haven't, and I'm all for it. I don't care how they get him back. I just think that would have been a nice touch if he kind of had some reality to it, because I like the fact that if he's Uncle Howdy, he continues on Bray's fictional story. Like, that's awesome. But I also like my idea because it's a lot more from the heart, obviously. Like an obvious statement from the heart. But I think it'd be great, man, whenever he's ready for it. It's obviously a big thing for him to come back, but whenever he's ready, I'd definitely support that.
I know. I'm pretty sure you probably have the same moments that I have from time to time. But like sometimes you sit there watching WWE in the last couple of weeks, and it's like, I can't wait to see Bray Wyatt. Oh,
yeah,
fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's the sort of thing that I don't think about 24/7. I did when it happened, but you know, life moves fast and we move on, so to speak. But yeah, there are times where you're like, he'd be really good here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, the world lost a good one that day.
Yeah.
And I do genuinely hope, whether or not it happens next year or whether or not it happens at some point in the near future, I do genuinely believe that he is a Hall of Fame inductee.
Oh God, it's as soon as the family's ready, man.
Yeah.
It's just like the company.
Yeah.
The company wouldn't care whether it's next year or whether it's in 10 years. As soon as they're ready, they'll be ready to go.
Yeah.
And maybe, what do you think? Is it too soon this year? Do you want to wait a while?
I think it's all up to JoJo and the family, man.
Yeah.
I think it's all up to JoJo and the family. But if WWE is talking to Bo Dallas about coming back as Uncle Howdy, that kind of says to me that they're ready to step back into the limelight again.
Where's that
So I
storyline
reckon-
going? Where will it go?
That's a really good question, because you know what I'd like to see? I would actually love to see Uncle Howdy come back and for Braun Strowman to go back into the fold.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
To honor both of their fallen brothers, man, like that would be just... That, to me, would be money.
Yeah, it would be. And it would give him something to do that he's probably not doing at the moment, so... I like it. Like, man, you should like move to LA or wherever Connecticut. Move to Connecticut and become a writer over there.
That's the unfortunate thing, man. If there's one city I wouldn't want to move to, it's Connecticut.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Look, I think, you know, the reason why we're talking about WWE is because I think for the most part, WWE has always been a little bit of a, like, your dirty little secret.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love watching wrestling sometimes. Yeah, just
Absolutely.
Don't talk about it amongst them. But it has become in recent years, I think, especially in the last 5 to 10 years, it's become something that is so much more a part of the pop culture zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got people like Edge, who is now making the jump from WWE is playing the role of Zeus in Percy Jackson and the Olympians for Disney Plus, coming out in 2 months' time. You've got people like John Cena and the Fast and Furious movies. You've got The Rock. You've got you've got Roman Reigns popping up in movies from time to time. You've got Seth Rollins. Yeah. Seth Rollins cast as one of the big bads in an upcoming Marvel movie. Like, these guys have gone from being you only Mr. Nanny. They're the kind of movies that wrestlers make. Mr. Nanny in the 1990s with Hulk Hogan and a weird-looking Undertaker. That's where wrestlers belong. To all of a sudden, wrestlers are like John Cena, The Rock, two of the highest-paid actors in the world.
Yeah, it makes sense to me because these guys athletically are amazingly gifted, but also their storytelling is equally, if not more, it's more important actually, the storytelling. And I've always loved that about the business. I've loved the business, the storylines, and then the sport of it last. Like, to me, that's the least important thing. Obviously, it's important, but and I'm not surprised that these guys now and girls in this age are using their smarts, and they're like, we can actually act. We know how to act.
Yeah.
We know how to be someone else, and when you think about Hogan and those guys back then, it was a different world, different era, different school, and I can see why we've come so far. And it's cool, man. And as you say, it means guys like you and me don't have to hide necessarily under a rock anymore about it. And you know, it's got its own channel on our Australian TV provider, and it's obviously a very, very big business.
Yeah, man, it's good stuff. It's big business. Well done to Western Australian government for getting the big show over there. It's going to be really good for the tourism economy over there. Man, this has been real. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed the walk down memory lane and a bit of a chinwag about what's to come. Maybe in a couple of months' time we can touch base and see whether or not anything that any storylines that I wrote come to fruition.
I'd love that, man. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. And anytime
pleasure.
you let me know.
And hey, also, while I've got you, for those listening at home, Sam has been a pretty great help for me in setting up this podcast. I ran into a few technical issues that I had a conversation with Sam about, and he gave me some really good tips. So very, very big props and very big thanks to you, my friend. It's been an absolute hoot getting to know you, and really, really appreciate the help.
Anytime, my friend, anytime.
You want to give SharkCast a plug?
I would. I'd love to. For anyone out there who, I guess, follows the Cronulla Sharks, or if they have an interest in rugby league, and even if you don't, we're going to ask you to listen anyway. It's a weekly podcast, and it's all about our beloved Cronulla Sharks. It's our opinions, it's facts, it's breaking news, reviews, previews, and it's told straight down the middle. So we're not affiliated with the club. We are good friends with the club. We're not affiliated with them. And we call it how it is. If someone has a bad game, you're going to hear about it. If someone has a good game, you're going to hear about it. And we have a lot of fun along the way with special guest hosts. So anyone that's interested, you'll find us all over your favourite podcast, and we're on the socials as well at SharkCast Pod. So yeah, please come along and join the fun.
Love it. One of my favourite podcasts. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you.
I'll see you on the other side of the country in a couple of months' time.
Look forward to it. Can't wait.
See you, brother. Hey, Sam.
Yeah, man.
I'm really afraid for the calendar, man.
You're afraid for the calendar.
Yeah. Its days are numbered.
Yeah, I got to go, bro. Take it easy.